Is this thing on? Okay, I guess it is. Jump scare for everyone out there. We're not doing a countdown, and I'm not the only one that's going to be a part of this show tonight. So please don't turn off your monitors or log out. I understand you all hate me, but you know what? I'm going to embrace it. Welcome back to another episode of the Happy Hour, Hot Stove Happy Hour. I don't know what our savior Ryan Ripken would like to call this thing, but a lot to talk about in Major League Baseball. And the stove, it's hotter than ever. Last week we talked about where's Juan Soto going to go. We know where Juan Soto is going to go, and that deal was made official today. We have a lot more to talk about, what the O's are going to do, when that domino is going to fall into place. But before I keep talking, and people don't want to hear much more come out of my mouth, let's bring on the star of the show. That is Zach Bollinger. Come on.
I was waiting. Rocky, you did a fantastic job intro.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. See, I'm already getting shit in the comments for it opening up to me. Nobody, I imagine the ratings go down because I see like we have 102. It's probably going to go down to like 82 if I'm on the screen by myself. But nice to have you on, Zach. Obviously, this is going to be a two-man show tonight, and we're just going to enjoy it.
Super hyped that I was the second or the first person introduced. I thought that was fantastic. Love the order.
Sometimes you got to throw those large and lumbering lefties like Ryan Ripken some curveballs sometimes and hope that he doesn't hit them. And I don't know his success rate in his career. Rip, if you want to join the show now, you can. It'd be great. But, I had to. That
was an awful introduction on so many levels. But good to see you guys. Hey, you know what? We wanted Rocco to lead in the Hot Stove Happy Hour. It's a mixed review. If I wrote that down and on my notes, it'd probably be a D-. But, guys, great to be with you. We're all virtual. I just got back from the winter meetings in Dallas. Shirts and pants, man. Brad and I had a whirlwind, had a time. My voice probably sounds like a little bit, but we got to talk a lot of ball here. We got to talk some shopping, and we're just gonna forget that Rocco, whatever that ghastly performance was to start this off. But Rock, where are we starting off with our Hot Stove Happy Hour? And cheers, my friend.
I have the absolutely. Cheers to everyone. Get your drinks. If you don't drink,
extremely toxic work environment here. I didn't have a beverage, and the bullying that happened behind the scenes by a certain person.
Well, when
insane.
Well, when you
HR will be hearing about this.
All right. Honestly, before we get into this, when you act like a high schooler that just got back from prom with the alcohol still in the water bottles all the time, or just constantly have that.
Water.
Shit. Yeah,
great. Water.
I'm glad you got a beer this time. We're good to go, and we're chilling. We're having a good time. So the question is, what do we have on the burners tonight for that hot stove? The big one in all of baseball and all of sports, really, it's Juan Soto. That is the biggest news in sports right now. Well, baseball related, because Bill Belichick's going to be the head coach at North Carolina, which is insane. But Juan Soto, it's a huge domino, and it's the domino of the offseason. We've been talking about this for a year now. What is this going to look like? What is free agency going to look like with Juan Soto? Is he going to stay a Yankee? Is he going to go to the West Coast? Is he going to stay in New York and sign a massive contract? And, we talked about it last week. He signed in New York. He signed a massive contract. So that's topic number one, stove number one. Okay, stove number two guys that we thought the Orioles maybe had a shot at. Maybe from the outside looking in, people thought maybe the Orioles aren't going to go after these guys. But I know for one thing, one of the guys would have been a great fit here in Baltimore. Nate Eovaldi, he's going back to the Rangers on a 3-year deal. And Garrett Crochet is another guy that the Orioles have been kind of in the mix for. He's heading to Boston. The Red Sox traded for him today. And then the question being, so sports fans are very impatient, and I get it, and you have the right to be. But with that being said, it's you see all these AL East teams making moves. When is the O's domino going to fall? And that is going to be the stove number 3, that burner number 3. Burner number 4, we got 4 right here. Will that domino be Corbin Burns? Will it be Dylan Cease? Or will it be someone else on the free agent market? We're going to talk about all of that and more tonight on this brand new edition of the Hot Stove Happy Hour. So let's dive into it, boys. We got, Soto, it was just broke the internet, honestly, when he signed with the Mets on that massive deal. And we said last week he was going to stay in New York. We figured it was going to be one of those teams, and it was. It just happened to be the Mets. So he walks across the street to Citi Field now.
Yeah. And just to kind of, the reason why we're bringing up the Soto conversation, because it does set the tone of what happened after. Yeah. So being in Dallas, for you guys that know that have been watching the show, if you're new to the channel, always hit that like and subscribe button. You knew it was going to kind of happen. And once it dropped, all right, or what's going to be the next move? And it was kind of dormant for a little bit of time. But what transpired in the process was a sense of urgency from another team, specifically the team that didn't get Soto, and that was the New York Yankees. And we're sitting there and we're getting ready to go, or we're still live, and we have the Yes Network near us, and we see the lights start to come on, and all of a sudden, so much buzz around that area. Max Fried signs that massive deal. I think, Rock, the Soto impact, largest contract in professional sports, half of what almost the Orioles went for, a little bit under half of what the Orioles were sold for this past year in value. But the Yankees, then, honestly, it might have been the best thing for them. And Max Fried, the most interesting thing being there was that pitching prices are now at a premium and they're only rising. And the other part, Zach, I thought 5 years for Snell was a long contract. 8 years being given out to a pitcher where he'll finish that contract at 38 years old. That was the perplexing thing to me. But the Yankees get their guy, but that's a huge investment in something that is resetting the market of what's happening.
Yeah, and it is. I've seen some people. I think the term that's been coined is the panic pivot. Juan Soto suddenly was no longer an option. They had to spend money. The Yankees, everyone knew that if they didn't get Soto, in some ways it could be better for their offseason. So they don't get Soto, and now exactly what we kind of talked about happened. Every single big-time free agent is connected to the people who missed out on Juan Soto. We said it from the jump. Not only was Juan Soto's signing going to impact one team, it was going to impact a ton of different teams and a ton of different players, and especially their price point. Hell, it's even impacting a guy like Tucker in Houston. He's now got Kyle Tucker is the hot commodity suddenly. So you see how it's impacted so much. Now the Yankees are looking at Kyle Tucker. Yankees are looking at Bellinger. It really has set the tone for the rest of the offseason because of the teams now involved. They don't get Soto, so they said, hey, we have $218 million we can go spend for 8 years on Max Fried, and now you add another big-time arm to the AL East. I know the 8 years, we were actually live when it broke yesterday, and originally, about 30 minutes before it was official, they said the Yankees were willing to go 7. Now they eventually go 8, and we all reacted kind of the same way. We were like, 7 years to a guy turning 31 in a month is a lot of time to commit to somebody. But I see it in the comments. I've seen it all over Twitter, all over social media, and even the regular media. In baseball, you have to sometimes give up those 2-3 extra years to get a guy because the players, from his perspective, if a team's going to offer you 8, that security for 8 years, they're going to go with it. So as a team, we talk about always 2 to tango. Just because you give your best offer doesn't mean that they're going to take it. So you got to negotiate up to 8 years, and that's where it is. People can call it an overspend, but that's what it takes to get these top-end guys.
No, I completely agree, Zach. And you look at, talk about giving guys extra deals. How many of us right now think Juan Soto is going to play until he's 41 years old?
Not as a right fielder.
Exactly. I don't think he's going to play until 41 years old in general. He could But that's a long time to play the game of baseball because, I mean, he entered the league as a young man and he's now 26. So,
but even Rock, let's take it a step further. If he is playing, what's the level of skill of production you're getting from ages 36 on? I
agree. And the Mets didn't spend the money thinking about ages 36 on. They spent the money knowing that this guy's in his prime. He's one of the best players in baseball, one of the best power. I mean, unbelievable hitter. And you look at that and you're like, okay, I want him on my team. How do I get him on my team? So they have the money to spend. They spent it and they threw a massive contract, the biggest contract in professional sports history, like you said, Rip, at Juan Soto. For a guy like Max Fried, that kind of confused me a little bit. I get why, they obviously wanted him, but when I see a deal with no opt-outs, number one, and
no opt-outs, no deferrals. Yeah,
no deferrals, no trade clause. That tells me, okay, Max Fried, his agent could work that in. If the Yankees or Max Fried sucks in a few years, it's like, you guys are beat. Like, I want to stay here. I got a family in New York. He might say that. It's like, you never know what's going to happen. So you look at these things now and you see teams getting guys. And I'm not saying the Orioles shouldn't be pursuing these top of the line players, but it's a way where certain teams spend, and let's see how it pans out in the next, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and what these contracts look like then. But if they can get a World Series out of it or success out of it, it's a win in my books. You just might have to just eat some shit for a few years after that.
So here's the thing too, for everyone to understand. And this is why when you're looking at the market of where it's going and the teams that are going to spend the big bucks or be willing to put it out there, Zach, you mentioned Kyle Tucker. Mm-hmm. And that was a name that was starting to buzz because you're like, well, wait a minute. Is he available? Like, is he truly available? Because after the Soto deal, every outfielder's price goes up. So Anthony Santander, and that was a name, like, I'll tell you what, guys, I was being in Dallas, Teoscar Hernandez's name, I didn't hear much at all being around people. Yeah. Like, nowhere being around, and he's going to get paid. I don't think it's going back to the Dodgers after they got Michael Conforto. I know different player, but don't see that there. Tony Tater's after the Tyler O'Neill deal, but then the Juan Soto, you're going to sit and wait, but then he might have to wait longer, some of these teams that are really interested in Kyle Tucker, because that's a guy that you're looking at, well, if you want him, you're going to give up prospects and then try to pay him. It's a really interesting scenario there. So there's always a domino effect. Before we get to burner 2, Rock, I wanted to play this clip, and this is one of the things I love about the game and why I love being there. So I got a chance to sit down and talk with the Twins president, Derek Valvey, about what the winter meetings are like. And by the way, Twins organization, how talking with them and the Guardians, they were amazing to work with and talk to at the winter meetings. But Derek Falvey talked about what happens at the winter meetings and what goes down. We're going to play that clip. I'll react pretty quickly on the other side just so people can understand what's happening. So let me play that for you guys. Did it delete or did I not? Oh, I got a doubt. Sorry, it's not in there yet. Whoops. Whoops.
Hey, so I got the notepad out. It was like an A minus for how you introduced it. And
well, guess what?
And
it's coming up right now
for execution. Well, you might get a D.
For me, when I think about what we do here every year is we're trying to figure out how to find information here that will help us through the rest of the offseason.
Right.
Winter meetings are a big deal. Obviously, there's some big signings here, moments that happen. But we're laying a lot of groundwork for conversations that'll probably persist through the holidays and then into January and even late January. The off seasons are no longer about trying to get everything done at winter meetings. So we spend a lot of time talking to other clubs, making sure we understand the dynamics around what are they trying to do. Maybe we have overlap in trades. Maybe there's an opportunity should a free agent kind of miss out on where he thinks he's going, like make sure we're set up to be in the right spot after that. So it's always about focusing on our core philosophy, which is build from within and then figure out ways to augment the roster.
So do you have any, past stories that you could explain to give a better picture to people listening of what the winter meetings is like, or maybe one of your favorite stories that you've had to deal with, or one of them?
I mean, there's so many years that you go through this, they all blend together after a while. You kind of forget where you are,
I'm sure.
And so I was like, what year were we here? Oh yeah, I remember that. It was 2011. It's like, wow, that feels like forever ago now. But the thing I remember most about different winter meetings is the chance in your room to then go to another, group's room and actually see the interaction and how teams operate, because it's the only time of the year where you have a baseball operations group with another baseball operations group maybe visiting with each other in person, right?
Yeah.
They don't travel around a lot. We're not in Baltimore all the time to be able to sit with Mike and his crew. I'll call Mike. We'll have conversations for sure, but it's not the same. And I think what you get out of that is you get relationship building. Yeah. And baseball is a game about relationships, as you know, and the history and the depth of it all. I love being here, being able to see people that work around the game that you don't get to see every year.
So right there, by the way, so that's Derek Falvey, president of the Minnesota Twins, baseball operations, and now newly business operations. He's doing both. But what I loved with that conversation is he's explaining what the winter meetings really entail. And the two things I took away from it is, yes, the winter meetings are important, where you might have that splash move that happens, which makes people feel good and get excited. But really what it does is it allows organizations to meet as full groups, which you don't do during the season. You don't do it at any other time. And you can sit in a room with their complete operations, get a feel for what they're doing. There's another story that I'll save for a different time. But you guys remember when Pablo Lopez got traded to the Twins and they gave up Luis Ariz. Mm-hmm. Derek said that was months in the works. It was talking about it at the trade deadline and through the offseason. Not every time does something come to fruition very quickly. There's always probably some sort of jump starter, and then it depends if it happens at the winter meetings or it happens later on. So I wanted to throw that out there. And by the way, the Twins, guys, I think we're going to be doing more with them. I hope to. They are
very similar.
They're very similar. They're not only with just – I love the openness. Derek's amazing. Dustin, their PR is fantastic. They're another market. And you look at Carlos Correa. Like, they will spend money. But Carlos Correa's deal, guys, do you have that off the top of your head?
Carlos Correa's deal?
Yes. And again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Welcome to the Happy Hour Hot Stove here on the Ryan Ripken Media channel here. We do this every Wednesday. Right. Try to do it around 6 o'clock. I just got back from Dallas. Rocco is going to right the ship but have a better job of introducing it in the future. But, Zach, go ahead.
So Carlos Correa remaining he's got vesting options up until 2032, but he is under contract till 2028. So,
and sorry, the full deal, the money-wise?
Six years, 200 million.
Okay, so right there, they're spending like 35 million-ish a year. 6 years.
This year, it's 37 this year. Averages about 33.3.
Okay, so great. That's a great point right here. Is that Minnesota, for certain guys, they will splurge for a player, right? And that was a middle of the lineup, middle of your defense type player that you went and got. So you spent a little bit more, but now that they spent that on a player, they were a little bit more strategical with what they've done. So that's why the comparison to Baltimore, we'll have more from that interview that we're going to post. And I did want to point out real quickly, Chris, you're right. He is a Shapiro descendant. Derek worked with the Guardians over there. So you're seeing how teams are going to have to navigate here and using trades and trying to be very savvy with what you're going to do, which then trades-wise, Rock, I guess might lead into burner number
2, dos. And if you have questions in the chat, put them up there. We'd love to answer them. We'd love to see how you've reacted not only to the Soto news, to trades, how you feel about the Orioles, whether it's positive or negative. We'd love to see, and we might bring them up and answer them or talk about them on here because, we appreciate you guys for tuning in and interacting with us. The second burner on the hot stove. That's a hot one today. That is Garrett Crochet, a guy that we talked about so much at the trade deadline last year.
Yeah.
But we talked about him on both sides of the fence. We said, okay, Garrett Crochet, he'd be great for the Orioles to have, but what does the longevity look like for him, not only for the season 2024, but in a 2025? This is a former reliever who just last season, I mean, he pitched in a absurd amount of innings for what he's done in the past. I mean, what were his numbers before, guys? Did he double his past like innings? It was just like something absurd.
Over. More than
exactly.
More than
like hammer the over. But he's such a talented dude, but a guy that we weren't sure if the Orioles were going to pursue him the trade deadline or in the offseason. Boston ends up trading for him, with the White Sox. So what the Red Sox gave up to get him from the White Sox was catcher Kyle Teal, one of their top prospects.
He's the star of
he's the cream of the crop right there. And outfielder Braden Montgomery. Those are two guys that are currently, if you look at the MLB top 100, their pipeline, those are the two guys that I'm about to mention that are top 100 prospects overall. Then you have infielder Chase Mydrith, and then right-handed pitcher Wikelman Gonzalez. So comparing that to the Orioles, and again, this is what we said. We talked about this today, boys. Like I was talking back and forth with Brad about for the organization for the Red Sox, that was their number 4 prospect, that was their number 5 prospect, their 11th, and their 15th. Okay, that gives you an idea of what it was throughout the organization. 2 top 100 overall prospects on that list. 4, 5, 11, and 15 for the Orioles, just to kind of give everyone a picture of what that would be. It would be the Orioles trading Enrique Bradfield Jr., Chase McDermott, Judd Fabian, and Thomas Sosa to get Garrett Crochet. But I do want to preface what I just said with this. You don't know if the White Sox would go for that package. They might have been looking for something different. And I'm not comparing 4, 5, 11, and 15 for one organization to another. I'm just saying, like, looking at the numbers next to their names, that's what it would be for the Orioles if they traded. So in looking at that, did the Red Sox give up too much? Did they give up the perfect amount? And what are your thoughts on Garrett Crochet going over there to Boston and another big-time pitcher joining the AL East?
Yeah, Zach, I'll throw to you after this. I think one thing I wanted to touch on, Rocco, is you said, well, we're looking at the prospect rankings. And they go, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the White Sox wanted. And I can guarantee you that's not what they wanted. And the one thing, when I look at the package there, is that looking what the Orioles have and what the White Sox want doesn't match up. If the Orioles were willing to part ways with a guy like Jackson, this kind of changes the whole dynamic. But obviously, we know that. But they probably don't value, in my mind, Kobe Mayo as highly as other players, or even like a guy we talked about who's in the big leagues, Heston Kjerstad. And then on top of it, the guys that they did acquire are younger, and they're going to be a little bit more in the ways of being big parts of the team, hopefully over the next 3 to 4 years. That's something the White Sox came out and said. That's what was talked about around the winter meetings. The White Sox are not trying to be this dynamic team this year. They're looking for guys that are going to be able to ascend in the future. So I want to throw that out there. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised that Mike Elias, 1, didn't want to give in to the White Sox needs, and 2, I think it would have been way too much from what they had with what they're trying to look for Garrett Crochet. But Zach, on the other flip side of it, and maybe this is where it's the situation, And John Morosi, actually, do we have that clip in right now of that?
Red Sox.
Let's play that clip for a second here, and then we can react to it.
Yeah, so this was on, was it yesterday, before any deals had gotten done? John Morosi talking about the Red Sox.
It's kind of that. I think Boston's kind of a sleeping giant, where I think that they overexceeded last year, and now they could make a run this year in this AL East that is going to continue to be competitive.
And Ryan, they've got the capital with their prospects to do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
Roman Anthony, I don't think is going anywhere, nor Christian Campbell, who I think is going to be in the major leagues this year. But they may be able to move Marcelo Meyer. And if they can do that, then that opens up a lot of possibilities for them. Perhaps even a Kyle Teal behind the plate.
Yeah.
They've got the prospects, again, whether it's Garrett Crochet, Dylan Cease, anybody else, to be able to get into those conversations.
And so he knows what he's talking about.
Like looking into the Magic. Magic ball right there. It's like he's a fortune teller.
So
Red,
at John Morosi right there, and John is awesome, by the way. Like I said, the cool thing about this winter meeting is getting to meet these people and some of these insiders. I gotta say, John was just genuine as all get out, and also obviously he was spot on. And Zach, it looks like to me, Kyle Teal, that is a player that the White Sox were looking at from the get-go. That's a guy that they valued in that pick. And that's something that we know for catching for the Orioles, Sam Basayo, that's a no-go. They aren't going to give up Sam Basayo. And so then the Red Sox make this move. They're better, but it's a good context piece of what you have to at least examine as these moves are being made.
Zach, can I say something before you jump in? Because I just want to set the stage here as well. What they gave up, they didn't have to touch their number 1 prospect, their number 2 prospect, or their number 3 prospect. So all top 3 prospects from the Red Sox in 2024, from a team standpoint, off the table. And they probably said that. They probably said, we'll give you 4, we'll give you this guy. So again, I think that's, for Boston, it looks like a great trade. But for the White Sox, what they get back, they get 4 guys, and the oldest one's 23. So they get 4 young guys that they probably want to throw into the lineup as soon as possible, because I hate it for Gavin and the fellas over there, but they're going to be they're in complete rebuild mode. And that's a reason you get rid of a Garrett Crochet, because of how bad you were last year. And that is a great piece of talent that you can go and say, hey, okay, we have this for you. What do you have for us? What can you do for us today? So the Red Sox, in return, they give them 4 prospects, 4 young guys, and guys the White Sox probably think, okay, we can ride with these guys for the next however many years, and we can potentially contend with them in the future. Sorry, Zach.
Yeah, and, with the Red Sox, I've been, my thoughts on Crochet is it's been a risk. I thought he was a massive risk for anyone who was going to acquire him. Just recently, let's go over in 2020, he pitched 6 innings. 2021, he pitched 54 innings. 2023, he pitched 12 innings. And then 2024, he goes up to 146 innings. That is just a massive jump. Even if he takes another jump, you're probably looking only at the 170 range. But, with a lot of people saying, I know I've seen people saying overpay, stuff like that. I think Q brought up earlier a great thing. It's not an overpay if they win the World Series. So you're going to have to, and we talked about this with Max Fried, with Juan Soto before. If you look at a guy and say, this is what his price is, this is what his value is, and we will not exceed it because we're trying to get him at what his value is, you will get nobody. You won't trade for anyone. You won't sign anyone. To get good players, you have to take risks and overpay. And that's what the Red Sox are doing. Yes, they didn't give up any of their top 3 guys. Kyle Teal is a very good prospect. They gave up a lot of young, promising prospects that the White Sox obviously hope are good, like Rip said, in 2 to 3 years, rather than come help us right now, like a guy like Mayo or Kerstead or Enrique Bradfield would be more on the lines of. For Boston, really the biggest one for me that is kind of telling is not only did they go get Garrett Crochet, reports came out right before we kind of hopped on, like in 30 minutes before, that they're still in on starting pitchers. They are talking to the Seattle Mariners. They're looking to use their draft or their prospects to get more pitching. I would probably assume maybe a Marcelo Meyer is the guy that would get moved in that.
Roman Anthony's up there. Like they talked about Roman Anthony too, right?
So,
like if they can get someone now,
I don't think I just don't see them giving up Roman Anthony.
Neither do I.
I think Marcelo Meyer's the guy that's expendable just because of the other guys. So they have prospects that they can go get from Seattle, which later on we'll get into more. But that's a team that we want to talk about. Hey, the Orioles, we thought they'd make a big trade. Red Sox go get Crochet. I didn't want him. I know others did, but now Red Sox talking to Seattle. So it's another team, the Orioles. If you want to go get a pitcher, it's not just teams are going to go, oh, well, we'll go to the Orioles. They haven't got anyone yet. It's who can give the best trade. Yeah.
Right. And Rock, to go back to, just to finish out this part here.
Yeah.
And I understand, Mark, having the number 1 minor league system is awesome, but it doesn't guarantee major league success. Why not move a few for a number one type? I 1,000% understand that logic. Eventually, you're going to have to be aggressive with certain guys that you want, not changing that. But I think that in some cases, this is just my opinion from looking at it, I think that some teams, when it comes to their top elite pitchers that could be available, they're not interested in all the packages that maybe Oriole fans are valuing higher. Like the more and more I'm listening, the more and more I'm watching my own things here and seeing outside of Jackson Holiday and Sam Basayo, who the Orioles do not want to move under any circumstance, I don't know how other teams are projecting Orioles out. Like the Orioles don't have that premier pitching prospect. I like Chase McDermott. I like Cade Povich.
Yeah.
They are not the elite guys. So if a team's saying, I want an arm, well, a team has to be enamored with that player. That's number one. Then number two, you have to have a position player. And I think teams want catcher, infielder. The Orioles have the outfielders, but what it seems like is that teams maybe aren't fully sold on that. Like an Enrique Bradfield Jr., that could be a big leaguer in Baltimore for a long period of time. Our teams like that to me with the White Sox would have made more sense because they're looking for the future. But a team that maybe wants to win right now, does that help them? No. Like Heston Kjerstad would matter more to a team that can win right now, right? So every team has a different value. And I think for Orioles fans, there has to be an understanding that not every team around Major League Baseball is having that same valuation that maybe some of these prospects are being ranked at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But Rip, you hit the nail on the head with saying the O's don't have those, young, not say they're not talented, but they're not top of the line starting pitchers.
This is
right
no
now
longer
at this
Grayson
point in time.
Rodriguez 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
there's not exactly they don't exist right now, and maybe they will in the future. But we're talking about right now, they don't. So what do the Orioles have a crop of? They have a crop of talent, position players wise. I'm not saying, hey, like jump the gun and make a trade just to make a trade, but if the Orioles miss out on Corbin Burns, okay, we talked about this too earlier. I want Corbin Burns back in Baltimore. I think that if Corbin Burns makes his decision and says, okay, like you guys offered me X, Y, and Z, but I'd rather go, home to the West Coast, that could be a personal decision. But I will say this, every player in baseball has their price, every player. And if you don't at least try to match that or keep him here, that to me is a failure right there. That's a guy you need back in Baltimore. But again, like I said, if another team offers more, he walks, he wants to play home, that's a different story. Mike Elias did his job. But that keeping him here, priority number one. If they can't keep Burns, you need to trade for a big-time pitcher. Because like John Morosi said yesterday, and I don't know if we have the clip, you need to ask yourself about, who's pitching game, or I think it was Morosi, who's pitching game one of a series in the playoffs? Who's pitching game two? Who's pitching game three? Who's pitching game four? Okay, you got a solid group right now, but you need that ace, and you need to continue to make this starting rotation as good or as best as you can to compete.
I agree. Hi, Brad. Happy hour.
How's it going, Brad?
Nice to meet you.
Still recovering.
Yeah, it was a long trip to Dallas. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. So our little happy hour hot stove special for those that don't know, Brad and I. Brad's the one on the lower left for any new listeners, viewers. We both were just at the winter meetings in Dallas. Now we are back. Just got back today. Long days, long nights. Incredible experience. Really happy. Now we're back with the boys doing a little bit of happy hour and looking to recover. So, Brad, you joined us as we went into topic number 2. And maybe it's a good time that Brad joins topic number 3, Rock, because this is where Brad and I talked about this overall for burner number 3, I should say.
Yeah.
Is, that next part. You like to just play not saying the devil's advocate, but Rock, you're asking the question.
Yeah.
Now,
let's
go to burner 3.
Burner 3 is we've seen all these dominoes fall so far at winter meetings. And I know that there are a lot of you out there in Birdland that are asking, that are sitting patiently. Listen, as sports fans, we're impatient. We're like the Simpsons meme, you're poking something with a stick, like, all right, do something. And that's what a lot of you could be doing right now. So that's my question. When are the O's going to do something? And if they decide to wait a bit more to do something, will that be too long of a wait? Will they miss out on big names? Nathan Eovaldi, I'll bring up, Rip, because we thought he was a perfect fit here in Baltimore. We thought he would make sense. I don't think Nathan Eovaldi ever planned to leave Texas. I think Texas came at him with a nice 3-year deal. They said, we want you here. Hold off. We're going to negotiate with you. I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but I think that was a plan all along to keep him. Now, a guy with postseason experience that has postseason success that could truly like come in and just dominate when you need him the most, would have loved to have Eovaldi here. But the O's don't get him. But I'm talking like big picture. You don't want to see more dominoes fall, like big dominoes fall, and be missing out on some of these guys. Will it be, am I being an idiot? Are fans, should they be more patient? Like what do you guys think right now? Because again, I'm an impatient person. I want moves to happen now. And you see the moves happening all over the AL East, and you're like, all right, like, come on, do something, do a little bit.
And what's that meme? Like I know people are looking at that one meme where it's a kid with a stick and it's like
do
poking.
something.
Yeah.
That's
kind of how it felt. But Brad, like, we had this discussion last night and all the days here.
Yeah.
For me, I would have been upset if Eovaldi went elsewhere. Like I would have been very confused if Eovaldi went elsewhere that wasn't Texas, right? Because we knew that the Orioles really liked him, but that was a great deal, and he always loved Texas. But the market right now, Brad, as we're seeing,
high.
There's not a desperation by any means there, but the options for the market of pitcher that Eovaldi was, that's shrinking, and I think that's the Orioles are looking at the most.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of things to say in regards to that. So last year, nothing really happened over the winter meetings for the O's, but then Uncle Mike comes in and shocks everybody with the Corbin Burns trade in February. I think that if there is something to learn from that, it's that while maybe there's some of these high-profile players that are getting scooped up and, in my opinion, overpaid for in some of these organizations, then I think that we should give some grace to Elias and just kind of continue to let him cook. Because look, there might be somebody that's out there that we haven't even talked about yet that Elias can go out and trade for. The one thing that the Orioles have a lot of is prospects still, even though they've given a lot away last year. So I think that while we haven't seen any sort of real money being spent, which I think that's still coming, you have to think about this. I think the move would be to make a trade, because they are going to have to pay for Gunnar, and I think that they really are going to try to pay for Gunnar in 4 years. And so, what does that look like? As you're continuing to build the rest of the team out, when you're going to have to pay Gunnar, when you're going to have to pay Adley, when you're going to have to pay some of these other guys, maybe trading makes the most sense. And I think trading for somebody that we're not even thinking about wouldn't surprise me if that ended up happening well after winter meetings.
Hey, another thing too, to talk about the winter meetings, I saw someone earlier say, "Oh, quiet one for the Braves." How about the Braves that they just lost Max Fried? It's a team that has aspirations. The NL East has gotten significantly better, but they were very quiet, right? This is just going back to the Derek Falvey video that we just showed.
Yeah,
it is not the end all for the video. I think, Zach, the perception from fans is that people think that, hey, we got a new owner, we're going to just spend whatever it takes to get the arm. And so that the Corbin Burns name being out there, it's going, well, why don't we get him? We should bring him in. Zero excuse. There's more that goes into that. And also, when you're looking at some of your other guys, there's a lot more to consider.
Yeah, I think that this offseason and last are very different in a lot of ways. And I'll say I'm not worried about the free agency as much. I think we all kind of agreed that it was going to be through a trade
Yeah.
that the Orioles make their, mark this year, their splash, as you would say. Also, real fast, I feel like people, when we talk about Orioles aren't spending money, they spent $8.5 million on a catcher already and $50 million on a left fielder. So the money is starting to be spent. It's not the high profile guys I know people wanted, but we have seen an increase in spending. The other thing is, when I'll play devil's advocate of why it's concerning this year, is because the pace of last offseason compared to this one is much different. Last year, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, all these guys were still available deep into spring training, whereas this year those tier one guys are going off quickly. And I'm not concerned about the Max Frieds, Blake Snells, and them again, because I never really thought the Orioles would be in on them. The rumors that concern me are, hey, Garrett Crochet's already traded. I thought that was going to take a little bit more time. I wasn't sure the Orioles would get him. But now like I said earlier, Red Sox are going right on, and they're like, hey, we're moving on to the Mariners. We want to keep getting better. So I know it's still very early. It's December 11th. We don't play games for another 3 months. But it is also a thing where you can't rely on, hey, we're going to let this play out before all of a sudden everyone's gone. You can't rely on the big fish to still be there in February because he was last year.
Well, Zach, with that being said, I saw Jacob Calvin-Meyer of the Baltimore Sun, the Orioles beat reporter. He was on Ryan Ripken Show. Yeah, friend of the program, was on yesterday, and he was at winter meetings again today. Scott Boras, everyone's favorite agent, he spoke. And on the topic of Mike Elias, I'd love to bring this video up. In communication, this is what he had to say. So I don't know if this will put your mind at ease, Birdland, but we're going to pull that up right now.
I think they kind of jumped the market in that regard. We've been in very close contact with Mike Elias and talking to him regularly, and he's made it very clear that under this ownership, they're going to take steps forward that they haven't taken in the past.
Okay. So you guys heard that, right? Or did we all hear the same thing?
Yeah.
That's should be a breath of fresh air. And I know, again, I'm not a patient person, but to hear Scott Boras say that and come out and say under new ownership, we're going to be doing a little more than we have in the past along those lines, that should be nice to hear, because I feel like Mike Elias, we're waiting. He has something up his sleeve. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We know that. But like you said, Zach, like we've talked about, hopefully it's just they haven't waited too long to make a big move, and the big names aren't off the market. But like Brad said, they could be looking at someone that's not, we don't even know is available for a trade. And they're like, all right, here we got him, and him. Here you go. Have them. Yeah.
We could watch the Mariners make a big trade with the Red Sox. We could see all these things happen, and then suddenly in a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month from now, the Orioles make a trade with the Pirates for Mitch Keller or Jared Jones. I'm seeing those names get thrown around. I'm not sure it happens, but they make a trade there, and suddenly the outlook on the offseason is completely different. Just like last year with Corbin Burns. Going into the season, it was, wow, that's kind of a disappointing offseason. Suddenly they get Corbin Burns, and it was Orioles won the offseason. So a single move can completely change the outlook of this thing. So I think that's what's important. Like you said, you and Brad, we also don't know who's available until it happens sometimes.
Crazy.
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. Also, for everyone saying, oh, Elias cares too much about his picks, he gave up a pick to get Corbin last year, plus 2 players. So I don't want to debunk that part there. It's not about that. And I see people saying about with Burns and talking about it. You guys already know how I feel about this with Corbin. And it's not that I don't think that Corbin enjoyed his time in Baltimore. It's not what I'm saying at all. But when you look at everything that's happened here, I saw a guy say, could Corbin go to Toronto? That would shock the hell out of me, because I think a lot of high free agents aren't sold on going to play in Toronto. Like, that's not a place where they want to be. I'm not saying it's not a great place to go, but they're having trouble landing high free agents. They are. And that's a part of it. Corbin, I still think he goes out west. I really do. But at the same time, I don't think Corbin's has this feeling that if the Orioles offered him this big deal, I don't know if he's going to say, oh, you know what? I want to be in Baltimore. And that's no knock to Corbin. He's a hell of a player, unbelievable pitcher. Hope he has all the success wherever he ends up going. But it just is telling to me that what Max Fried got, I don't see in the equation that the Orioles keep him. I just don't. I never did. And if you really wanted to be there, I think that we wouldn't be at this point.
Right.
Well,
I don't.
On top of that, Rip, not like Corbin Burns didn't choose to come to Baltimore. Corbin Burns got traded to Baltimore. Not everyone, breaking news, is going to like this city. I personally love it here. I know you guys do as well, but not everyone is us four and everyone in the chat. So for Corbin Burns, like you said, West Coast guy, him and his wife just had twins. There's a lot of things that go into free agency and what players have an opportunity or a chance to do. Because if you're not under contract anymore and you get that sense of kind of freedom of where you can sign and you can pick and choose for maybe one of the first times in your Major League Baseball career, you're going to think about all of that. Maybe you want to move close. And I know Orioles fans don't want to hear all this shit. It's like, shut the hell up, Rocco. But it's the truth, man. It's the reality of sports, because while they're getting paid millions of dollars, they're, maybe families on the West Coast, like you said, maybe they want to be in this city. Maybe this has always been like a dream place to go play. Like, you just don't know. So again, I would still love to see the Orioles just throw everything in the kitchen sink at him and try their hardest to keep him here. But ultimately that end decision is going to be up to Corbin Burns. But if the Orioles, Mike Elias and the front office has done everything to keep Corbin Burns here, I don't think this fan base can be mad if he decides to sign elsewhere.
Can't be.
Unless it's New York.
Then that would be bad. Then that would be like that. That's the thing for me, is it would if we'd have to look at what the price is going to be of the deal, but that would sting Oriole fans, is if Corbin doesn't go west and he stays in division, that would piss some people off. So, Rock, I forget which burner is that involved. The last burners that did we talk about involving the one pitcher that everyone's kind of waiting?
No. It kind of ties into the final burner is that final, or I guess first domino for the O's, because we're talking about when that first domino will fall. It's more along the lines of who it will be and who we think it's going to be and who we hope it's going to be. So to that, will it be Corbin Burns? Will it be a Dylan Cease? The Orioles are linked to Dylan Cease. It seems like the Orioles are linked to Dylan Cease every year. It's like last year the Orioles were linked to Dylan Cease. So it's like, okay, seems like that conversation might have been had. Who the hell knows? But Corbin Burns, Dylan Cease, you got Sean Manaea, you got Framber Valdez, who was it? Jim Duquette told us he was almost an Oriole back in the day. Like, which one of these players still on the market do you think the Orioles are going to get? And would you love the Orioles to see get? I'll start with you, Rip.
So first off, I think when you're talking about dominoes, a domino that we might have to see what happens is a player that is not technically in the States yet. And that's going to be with Sasaki.
Yeah.
I really do think that the Sasaki move will be the next domino effect. And I'll explain a little bit more in a second. But John Morosi talked about the Sasaki situation. I'm going to play that clip for you guys right here. I want you to listen to what John's saying about what he's hearing, and then we're going to react on the other side. So here you go.
But he's officially posted, and the buzz that's kind of surrounding with Sasaki right now.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this story play out, Ryan, because he's the rare player that is truly of interest and attainable to everyone in the industry.
Right.
And Joel acknowledged today, and we'll see how it all plays out, that Roki might want to sign with more of a middle market team. Again, he's not necessarily going to go to the highest bidder because it might be a question between $3.1 million and $3.2 million. This is a constrained by the rules negotiation where it truly is about how comfortable he feels with the team, with the organization, with the coaching staff. And this is about Sasaki getting to the point where Shohei was a year ago, where he becomes this eminent player in MLB. He enters free agency, and that's where the pot of gold is. So it's almost, Ryan, comparable to a college player.
Yeah.
Who says, I want to go to the best baseball program, football program, basketball program to be able to make my money down the line. What can you do to make me the best 28-year-old pitcher that I can be? And that's the question. So the Padres, I think, are really in that conversation because there is that relationship with Darvish. That's real.
That's a real thing.
And I think that relationship could be, if he ends up going to the Padres, that could be the thing that tips the scale in their favor.
So right there, John Morosi talking about the impact with Sasaki and where there are so many teams that could be available in this conversation. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken, happy hour hot stove here on the channel. We do it every Wednesday night now moving forward. Guys, that's the domino I think that's going to go next, because if he goes to San Diego, Dylan Cease becomes even more movable. He goes to Seattle, which is a place that people have started to heat up on. It makes even more sense for Seattle to want to move another piece, right? Because you're replacing a younger element and you're able to then replenish your system or whatever need that you are looking for. So that's where I go with Rock. That's the domino that I think needs to fall next. I think a guy like Sean Manaea can go anywhere else. But as far as trades are concerned, I really think that the Sasaki move is going to dictate a lot. And I do think he's going to stay in that West Coast side. It's just, that's the feeling. And if he does, then Cease, Castillo, one of those guys is going to be available. And I really would be surprised if Baltimore isn't a front runner for one of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that Sasaki, like many, believe that he's going to sign, like John Morosi believes he's going to sign with the Padres. I would agree, because you saw the connection that Ohtani and Yamamoto had last season. I mean, over the course of their careers in Japan, and now they're playing together in LA. So I could see a similar situation happening in San Diego. It just makes sense for two guys that are very familiar with each other, know each other, and are connected. And on top of that, you can stay on the West Coast. So, I think that would be, it makes too much sense. So if he doesn't sign with the Padres, it'll be surprising if he's not in San Diego to me. So, yeah, Rip, I think that once you see that, I would hope the O's are maybe having that conversation already. If they truly want Dylan Cease here, saying like, hey, like we know what's going to happen. So we just want to get ahead of the game right now. And again, Mike Elias he's always got something up his sleeve. He really does. Whether it works out or not, we don't know. We don't know like all of his plans in the past that have been executed. We know Corbin Burns is one, but we don't know what that trade deadline looked like last year. I would love to be a fly on the wall and sitting in like that war room when Mike Elias is kind of wheeling and dealing and trying to make those deals and seeing what these teams are actually asking for. And you have to wonder what a team's going to ask for Dylan Cease this time around.
If they are wearing a Mariners jersey right now, I want them wearing a Baltimore Orioles jersey on opening day. Castillo, Miller, Wu, any of them. Gilbert,
give me them all.
Literally, if they pitched in the 1 through 6 for the Seattle Mariners last year, I am okay with them being a Baltimore Oriole. I've said it a million times. It just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
It just makes way too much sense. That both teams help me, help you. It just makes too much sense. I think it helps free up other players to get playing time. I think you then can allow yourself to get a top-end starter from Seattle. You don't have to give up the farm. I think a guy like Mountcastle is a good starting point there. It feels like it just benefits so many people if those two teams work together. That's why I think the Red Sox, when it's reported that they're talking to the Mariners, they're making moves, trying to get one of those guys. That's that was concerning for me because if I don't think the Mariners move off of 2. I think they move off of 1. They have the ability to move off 1 and still have a great 1 through 5. So that's why it feels like I said earlier, while last year you were able to make the big trade in February, you can't rely on the guys to be there in February. So if you have the opportunity and other teams are taking chances to go get a guy in Seattle, you can't stick on your type of calendar or your schedule. Sometimes you have to accelerate it because he might not be there in 2 weeks when you're ready to make that discussion, have that discussion.
And like Castillo has been such a pain in the Orioles' ass the last 2 seasons. I know it's only been he's made 2 starts, but they've won both games where he's pitched, and it's like he's just. I would love to see him in Baltimore here too, Zach. I think it would be a perfect fit. Brad, what do you got? You're rubbing your eyes. Want to keep? Hey, awake, up, energy.
Listen, I left it all in Dallas.
You guys killed it.
Lost a lot of good men out there.
We did.
Oh, man.
I was just actually looking through. I know it's the obvious one, but it's the one that I feel like makes the most sense. I think Dylan Cease just makes the most sense right now. Of the guys out there, I think
I agree.
And I was actually scouring Twitter. It would be the most hilarious thing ever if somehow Manny Machado made it back to Baltimore. Just hilarious. I think that's happening, but it would be hilarious. But no, on all seriousness, I do think Dylan Cease makes the most sense. And we've already heard from the Orioles about how there's mutual interest in trying to make something happen over there.
Yeah. And I think also with Dylan Cease, by the way, this is what's so intriguing with me with a guy like him. He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 in a couple of weeks, right? But 29 years old, a guy that, you can see what you have, but maybe that's the one that you can really rely on. And I do think he had a good, solid finish last year. I think a good bounce back to what we saw where people were wondering, well, man, what the hell happened to him back in 2023 where he had his ERA inflated, and the year before he was a Cy Young type pitcher, right? So I think the Cease upside's there, and I think people are underplaying what the Orioles still have in their guys. Like if you get another, let's just say it's a mid-tier guy, how it's being viewed. If you do land Manaea, who I think is going to get more than Eovaldi. I think that deal is going to be pushing towards 100. If it was 3, maybe for 90. Maybe 4 for 100. I don't know but I think he's going to push for that. Zach Eflin, a Dean Kramer that's building confidence, a healthy Grace Rodriguez, which you hope for, and then on top of it, you're able to get Kyle Bradish back at some point down the stretch. I think people do forget, despite all the problems that went wrong for Baltimore, they were still the first team in the American League to win 70 games.
Yeah.
So it's just with the young guys, there's so many different ways of unpredictability of what can happen with the lineup. Are you guys, and in your starting rotation, are you guys going to ascend and continue to get better? Or are you going to feel, and that's what fans worry about, are you going to be stuck in the mud like you were the second half of the season? I'm betting on the first one, and I do think Dylan Cease could be a perfect fit, get that arm to Baltimore, saying Sasaki goes. And I think that it's a good thing. And also probably the Dylan Cease, because he's going to be kind of like a rental, similar to the Corbin Burns situation. I think he's a cheaper option than any other one that's out there. Like Luis Castillo, he's going to cost more because of his team control. Dylan Cease, the Orioles will probably give up comparable to what they gave up for Corbin or a little bit less is my guess. So that is what my thinking is. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Boys,
what you got, Brad?
I was just saying I saw some comments here. Tom Pierce here asked how the hotel bar was. Hotel bar was great, and we probably wouldn't be hurting as much had we not befriended somebody who was a liquor salesman who had all of the liquor.
Holy hell! Oh.
Liquor. You know the next slot? Never mind.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Rocco.
It's a nice dad joke for you.
If the free liquor wasn't available, I would be much.
It was.
Much happier today.
I'll tell you what, though, we got some good barbecue.
Oh my God, yeah, multiple times.
Multiple times. You see a lot happening, and the thing with the winter meetings, there's a lot of people, and like Rock, that place keeps going until like whenever they want to end.
It
like
feels
just
like
at all the places.
I'm
We-
so pissed.
We walked back to our room at like 3 a.m. essentially, and it was still popping.
Yeah, that's like with. I don't even know what I could compare because I haven't been to winter meetings, but I'd love to go next year with you guys. But the only thing like comparison is like in SEC media days when everyone is just grinding throughout the day. Like you guys did, we did a 4-hour stream. You guys were running and gunning all day trying to get contacts.
Yeah.
Everyone, like the Passons of the world, like John Morosi's of the world, getting their information, hitting up their sources. And when it seems like when that clock strikes midnight with SEC media days and winter meetings, everyone's just like, let me get a fucking drink. Like I need a drink so bad. And it's like, it's so cool to see like everyone just like congregate and come together. And it's like, there's, work's done for now, unless you're a psychopath and you're just hitting someone up for a story at 3 a.m., which happens sometimes, but it's freaking awesome, guys. I'm glad you had a blast. That's like an experience. So hell yeah.
Hopefully we make it a tradition.
Yeah, Jeff Passam literally paced that entire hotel all day, every day.
My God, I can imagine. Is he a pacer?
Yeah,
but it's not a fast pace.
No, yeah, it's just a stroll.
Is it like a walk around in a circle kind of thing on the phone? Like
staring at his phone the entire time, just walking back and forth.
Yep. Hey. Damn.
Well, I think overall, I think that's a good happy hour.
We got a solid crowd tonight. I love this.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Solid crowd.
Fantastic.
Before we go, tradition. I do want to bring this up on this day in Orioles and baseball history, December 11th, 1984. The Orioles signed this player to a 5-year, $6.8 million deal. And they're probably looking at the deal Juan Soto just got and shaking their damn head right now.
Yeah, but
who is that player?
That's pretty damn good.
I already know the answer.
What year is it?
This day in 1984, the Orioles signed this player to a 5-year, $6.5 million deal. Who is that player?
Who? Ryan?
Anyone know? Anyone in the chat want to take a crack at this? Old school player, 1984, 5 years, $6.4 or $5 million. I think that was a lot back in the day. I would assume in '84.
A well-known player for the Warriors.
He's a well-known player in baseball history, and he is a Hall of Famer. But he obviously didn't spend his entire career with the Orioles. Sorry, is he not in the baseball? Is he not in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
I guess it would be
He's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I could have sworn he was.
Oh.
9-time All-Star.
What? And he's not in the Hall of Fame?
And your AL MVP in 1975. He's got to be in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not even.
No, not the slightest.
Wait, hold on.
Thomas coming through.
Oh.
Freddie Lynn.
Oh, it's a good throwback.
Who else got it? Anyone else? Rick. Sorry. Rick came through. Fred Lynn. Very nice.
Yeah, he said it first.
I did a lot of Eddie Murray. That's what I was thinking.
Well, Eddie was the last trivia question on this day. So we're Austin, that is not who signed in 1984, but maybe they signed in 1985. But interesting. I honestly did not know. Like, am I stupid or is Fred Lynn actually not in the Hall of Fame? Because that's crazy.
I'd have to check it a little bit more. And fellas, I got to hop on a 7:30 call because a lot of people wanted me to talk about the winter meetings. I don't know why. I told them My voice is hurting. The boys, we were buzzing, and the season's over already. And 2025 is over. So that's that. But Rock, I think it was another great happy hour. Thank you for giving. We will work on your entrance next time.
Yeah.
Overall,
I mean, from where we started, such a massive climb from the beginning of the show to the end.
Tough.
Was a crazy way to start. Just
I have to go back and watch.
It's like the no, I did it on purpose. It was like the girl that's like tapping on the thing,
Nemo?
Finding Nemo. She's like the fish with the braces. She's like,
that encapsulates you very well, actually.
It does. So no,
I was just gonna pull that up.
The O's are fine. Oh, I can't wait for those tweets again. I can't wait for Ryan to piss some people off this season. You can't piss one Twitter account off because it got deactivated. But
Jeez, Rocco's obsession continues.
It's hilarious.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you. On the way out, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Rocco, you want to do the honors?
What honors are they, Ryan?
End the show.
We just got ended. All right, should I do my Ryan Ripken impression? All right, as always, thank you for tuning in for Hot Stove Happy Hour here on the Ryan Ripken Show. For Ryan Ripken, Zach Bollinger, and Brad Smith, I'm Rocker DeSangro. Have a day, have a night, and have a week.
We know our shit.